Hi, I'm Irma. At my sister's wedding, my mom gave away my $2 million condo without asking and told everyone I graciously gifted it. When I refused, she had me kicked out in front of 200 guests. But here's the part they didn't see coming. This wasn't just about a condo. It was about a lifetime of being the quiet daughter, used, dismissed, replaced. And when I finally stood up, my mother tried to erase me, so I made one phone call and turned their perfect day into a lesson no one would forget. But the real revenge? It wasn't loud, it was silent and devastating. Want to know what happened next? The ballroom filled quickly, and so did the pressure in my chest. I arrived early, not out of eagerness, but routine. I'd learned long ago that if I showed up late to anything family-related, I'd miss more than the ceremony. I'd miss the moments they saved for each other. I wore a navy silk suit, sharp, minimal, no frills. It was tailored, comfortable, and non-negotiable. My mother had sent a text earlier. "Don't dress too loud. Let Delaney shine." I didn't respond, just stared at it, then tucked it away like every other little reminder of where I stood. The valet mistook me for the event planner. "You're with the vendor team?" I smiled. One of those smiles you rehearse in boardrooms. "No," I said, "just family." The Grand Mariner Hotel looked exactly how Delaney had described in the mood boards she never once asked my input on. Gold accents, white rose centerpieces, perfect weather, picturesque. Like a life that had been staged just right, and I was in the background of every photo. I headed to the check-in table, looked for my name. It wasn't there. "Maybe it's under my first name," I offered to the girl behind the laptop. She squinted, typed, checked the guest list. "Oh, are you part of the family?" she asked. "Yes." "Then no need for a card. Family sits up front." I looked down at the neatly printed cards on the table, each with perfect cursive. Cousins, in-laws, even my niece's boyfriend had a spot. But not me. I walked away. Didn't argue, didn't protest, just walked away. A waiter brushed by me with a tray of mimosas and did a double take. "Sorry, staff entrance is back that way," he said. "I'm not staff," I replied softly. He blinked, nodded, and kept walking. I poured myself a glass of water from the refreshment table and found a spot by the wall, where no one could pretend they didn't see me, because they wouldn't be looking there anyway. The ballroom buzzed, guests filtered in, laughter, light, champagne flutes clinking like wind chimes in a storm I hadn't realized was already brewing. Delaney, of course, glowed. She always glowed. Born to be clapped for, raised to be adored. Today, she was a princess in lace. Her voice chimed across the room, thanking guests for coming. Mom trailed behind her, floating, proud, like she was the one getting married. I passed by a group of relatives whispering, but not quietly enough. She turned out so well. Unlike Irma, always so businessy, masculine, you know? Like she's attending a court hearing, not a wedding. She's probably got emails to check on that phone of hers. I said nothing, just kept walking. No one asked if I wanted to help with the setup. No one needed me to touch the flowers or fluff a napkin or move a chair. They never did. But they sure cashed the check when I wired the deposit for this ballroom. $40,000. Gone with barely a nod. I didn't want credit. Until now. Dad passed by me with a plastic grin. "Didn't recognize you," he chuckled. "Thought you were hotel staff." He kept walking. I stood at a table near the edge of the ballroom, empty, untouched. The place settings were basic. No floral fold in the napkins like the other tables, just a plain napkin lying limp on the plate. I flagged a staff member, trying to be discreet. "Oh," she said, glancing down. "Only guest tables get the leaf fold. Family tables are just basic. Basic. She didn't mean it the way it landed. But it landed anyway. And it stayed there. Somewhere deep, where all the other slights had gone. Like the time they got Delaney a birthday cake and handed it to me by mistake. I was 7. It had her name on it. They laughed. Said it didn't matter. But it did. I never asked to be the center of attention. Just not the erased margin. You don't need a spotlight, I muttered under my breath, when no one even thinks you belong on stage. I left the table and walked toward the restrooms. Not to cry, just to breathe. Inside, I stood before the mirror, fixed my collar, tucked one stray strand of hair behind my ear. The phone buzzed again. It was from Mom. Delaney's bridal gift is going to be huge. Hope you're ready to shine too. I stared at it, let the words sit. Shine. I'd spent most of my life dimming myself so Delaney could glow, so Mom wouldn't complain, so Dad wouldn't get that tired look in his eyes. But this felt like more than another oversight. This felt like a setup. And I knew it. You erased my name from the table, I whispered to my reflection. Let's see what else you try to erase today. And somehow, they still expected me to smile through it. After stepping out of the restroom, I took a slow lap around the ballroom, hoping my breath would settle. It didn't. A staff member flagged me down and pointed toward the seating chart board. You're with the family overflow, he said, friendly but brisk. Table F9. The term hit me like a slap with a white glove. Overflow. I found my name. Well, almost. Elma Crane. Wrong first name, wrong last name, not even close. I stared at it for a beat too long. How do you misspell the name of the daughter who helped fund this entire circus? I didn't complain. I took a photo, emailed it to myself with the subject line, documentation, misplaced identity, and moved on. Programs were being passed out. Special thanks to those who made this day possible, it read, listing names in elegant script. My name wasn't there, not even the wrong version. Even second cousins twice removed made the cut, but not me. I didn't feel sad. I felt cataloged, as if someone had flipped to the wrong page on purpose. I poured myself a glass of water. Just as I lifted it, I heard the mic screech, and my mother's voice echoed across the ballroom. And Delaney's new life begins in the most beautiful way possible, in the condo Irma has so graciously gifted her. I froze. That one sentence burned hotter than any fire I'd ever stood next to. The room clapped, cheered. Some guests turned to me, smiling, nodding in admiration. My cheeks stayed still. Gifted. I hadn't gifted anything. I hadn't even been asked. Delaney beamed from the stage, locking eyes with me as if she'd known. Maybe she had. Maybe she'd been coached. Someone leaned over and patted my shoulder. Such a generous sister. Family first, right? I nodded. Just once. The kind of nod you give when a stranger hands you the wrong order and you're too tired to send it back. Inside, I was vibrating. My fingers clenched the base of my glass until I remembered I was still holding it. They're applauding the version of me they need, I thought, not the one I am. I scanned my inbox, messages, even my call log. No discussion, no hints, no confirmation of any condo donation. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was scripted. I didn't move to the microphone. I didn't correct anyone. Not yet. Later, during a break, I found her, Marlene, standing near the cake table, making small talk about fondant like nothing had just detonated. I asked softly, "Why did you say I gifted the condo?" She blinked, smiling like I was asking where the bathroom was. "Oh, sweetheart, don't be dramatic. You're not using all that space. Delaney's starting her life." "You didn't ask me," I said. She tilted her head, gave that mother smile that always came before a lecture. "It's not about asking. It's about family knowing what matters. You always say you want to help. I looked her square in the face and realized this wasn't her slipping. This was her rehearsed, premeditated. She never saw me as an owner, just a supplier. Back in the reception hall, I walked past guests, sipping wine, taking selfies, enjoying the show. I glanced toward the side patio. There was Delaney, phone angled high, snapping a photo with her fiancé. The caption was already typed. Our condo. I stared, not mine, ours. I sat at a nearby table, pulled out my phone. Calendar reminder, HOA dues due tomorrow. Another one, appliance delivery window, 12 to 4 p.m. I'd chosen those appliances. I'd signed that contract. They weren't just giving away my home. They were making a home out of my existence, and everyone applauded like it was normal. They took my home in front of 200 people, I whispered under my breath. And they clapped for her, and I wasn't afraid to start pulling them out. The ballroom buzzed louder now. Guests had trickled in from all sides, some familiar, some new, all dressed like they belonged in a catalog. Speeches started, nothing formal yet, just impromptu toasts, the kind that flow easily after 2 glasses of overpriced Chardonnay. Delaney stood near the head table, glass raised, and with that effortless glow she always carried, began her toast. To my wonderful parents, for making this day everything I dreamed of. To my future husband, my partner in all things beautiful and messy. And to everyone who helped bring this vision to life, we love you. That was it. I stood in the crowd, invisible again. No mention, no nod, not even a sideways glance. A few people who'd worked with me, vendors, planners, looked my way, half expecting me to speak up. One leaned in and whispered, "Hey, thanks again for recommending this place. The ballroom's incredible." I gave a polite smile. Didn't bother correcting him. What would be the point? Marlene appeared beside me like she always did when I looked too visible. She didn't even lower her voice this time. Don't make this about you. Today is not for self-promotion. I didn't answer. I just watched as my absence was packaged as politeness, as if being forgotten was something I should be grateful for. That was the moment the line was drawn, not by her, but by me. Later, I heard a cousin chatting near the buffet, complimenting Delaney on her City View engagement shoot. "Those photos were unreal," she said. "That living room? I thought it was from a magazine." I pulled out my phone, opened Instagram. There it was, a full album, posted a week ago. Engagement at our new home. Hashtagged, geotagged. It was my living room, the white sofa, the glass coffee table, the balcony view, my art on the walls. I scrolled further, photo after photo of Delaney and her fiancé posing in a home they had never paid for, never lived in. While I was in New York for a work conference, apparently, Marlene had asked for my keys for plumbing access. I gave them without thinking, and they used my absence to stage a fantasy. In my house, I kept scrolling. I stopped at a photo of them on my balcony. The caption read, "We can already see our future from here." My teeth clenched, not out of rage, but something colder, something clearer. They don't see me as a person, I thought. They see me as a convenience. Flashback hit me like muscle memory. Nights up till 2 a.m., calling vendors, negotiating rates, using my business connections to get that upgraded room block. I had done it all quietly, assuming being useful would finally mean being seen. But now those same choices were being rebranded. "This is all Delaney's taste," one guest told another. Yes, and Marlene's sense of elegance. It's so classic. I caught that mid-sip and nearly choked. They love using my tools, I said to myself. They just never admit where they got them. One guest even said the decor reminded her of something from Architectural Digest. Funny. I'd been interviewed by that very magazine 6 months ago. The room started to feel smaller. I stepped outside for air, but was intercepted at lunch. "Thank you for doing so much for Delaney's big day," a family friend said warmly. I opened my mouth, ready to respond. But before I could, Marlene swooped in. "She's always been great with logistics," she said. "Irma's a doer, not a dreamer." She smiled sweetly. Everyone else chuckled. That comment didn't just bruise, it sliced. It wasn't the insult, it was the truth behind it, or rather, the belief that it was true. That's all I was to them. A coordinator, a silent funder. The woman who handled the mess while they claimed the masterpiece. In my mind, I started rehearsing. The words I'd use if I left, what I'd say, how I'd frame it so they couldn't twist it. I didn't cry, I didn't storm out, I just disconnected. I opened a message window to my assistant. "Send me the title doc for the condo and the HOA access codes." He replied instantly. I didn't need them right now, but I needed to feel like the ground I stood on still belonged to me. I walked back into the ballroom and saw Delaney in a group photo with friends. She was holding a wine glass, laughing, mid-pose. "Minimalist, just like Irma," she said to one of them. "It's so me, right?" My jaw tightened. You don't get to live in what I built while erasing my name from the walls. They took my home. They took my name. But they forgot. I keep receipts. The first crack had formed, and I wasn't about to seal it shut. It started during what was supposed to be a sweet moment. Marlene pulled Delaney toward the front of the ballroom just before the official ceremony was to begin. A server was still adjusting chairs. A few guests were still finding their seats. But Marlene didn't care about timing, only optics. Delaney took the mic, perfect as always. Her voice sugar-coated, her smile practiced. "I just want to say, my sister Irma," she turned to me dramatically, "has always been my role model. Strong, quiet, never demanding attention. I just know she wants me to have the best start." There it was. A setup. Applause. Nods from people who didn't know the half of it. And I stood there with no mic, no voice, no space to counter the narrative. Because who interrupts a bride before her vows? I didn't need to speak. I needed to remember. What they called humility was really my silence, and now they'd baptized it as generosity. I walked out into the hallway, not because I was emotional, but because I felt the room closing in. I needed air. Marlene followed. She always does. She reached for the sleeve of my jacket and tugged gently, brushing an imaginary wrinkle. "Why navy?" she said in that soft, scolding voice. "You're not going to court? Try something softer next time. It's your sister's wedding, not a stockholder meeting." I didn't flinch. I looked her dead in the eye. "Navy is neutral, just like I've been for years." She scoffed and laughed lightly. "Always the martyr, never the bride." I didn't give her the reaction she wanted. I just nodded like she hadn't said a word. But inside, something was moving, uncoiling. I turned to leave, but she stayed, eyes lingering on me like I was a puzzle she thought she'd already solved. Back in the reception area, I passed a guest I barely knew. She smiled brightly and said, "You're lucky to have a family that involves you this much." I faked a smile. Lucky. A flashback shot through my chest. Delaney's 21st birthday. I planned the whole thing, paid for the venue, bought her a watch engraved with our initials. I was introduced as my older sister who works a lot. That line stuck longer than any toast ever could. I scrolled my phone. An old colleague had texted me, "Still in San Diego? Want to grab coffee?" I stared at the message longer than I should have, not because I was unsure, but because, for the first time, I actually considered saying yes. It felt nice to think about being with someone who didn't expect me to apologize for being who I was. I walked away from the crowd again, this time heading to the bridal lounge. It was quieter there. Empty, except for the lingering scent of perfume and flowers. I stood near the mirror, next to the rack of backup dresses. Delaney's gown was being steamed by an assistant. On the vanity, laid out neatly, were the bridal gifts. Jewelry boxes, monogrammed robes, little pouches of perfumes. One box caught my eye. It was the necklace, the one I ordered. To Delaney, from the whole family. That engraving punched me in the ribs harder than any insult ever had. I paid for that necklace. I picked that stone. I chose that chain because it was delicate, not flashy, something Delaney would actually wear. And now it was from the whole family. They repackaged my generosity with their names on the box, I thought. I poured a small glass of wine from the decanter. No toast, just a moment. I looked at myself in the mirror, saw a woman standing still in the storm. Not someone cold, not even angry anymore. Someone who had been waiting far too long to be let in. I went back into the ballroom, eyes dry, pulse steady. A cousin spotted me. "Irma," she said with a smile, "are you excited to hand over your condo?" I didn't blink. "I'm not handing anything over." That announcement was not discussed with me. She blinked, confused. Her mouth opened like she wanted to say more, but no words came. A couple of guests nearby turned their heads. Someone raised an eyebrow. And then I saw her, Marlene, across the room. She looked at me. This time, I didn't look away. If I'm going to be the problem today, I thought, I might as well start acting like one. They dressed my silence as support. Let's see how they handle my voice. And now, I was ready to remind them exactly who they were dealing with. I stepped outside the ballroom for a moment, hoping to catch my breath before the ceremony officially began. The hallway wasn't crowded yet, just a few guests checking phones or looking for the restroom. I leaned against the wall, adjusting the sleeve of my navy jacket, trying to decide if I'd walk back in through the front doors or leave through the back and never return. A woman I didn't recognize smiled, waved me over. "Hey, can I get a champagne refill?" She thought I worked here. I wasn't wearing black, no apron, just the same tailored suit I'd worn all morning. But to her, I didn't fit the picture of a guest. I stared for a second, then answered, "I'm not staff." She blinked, confused, and muttered, "Oh, sorry," before walking off, cheeks flushed. I didn't feel embarrassed. Not this time. I was invisible enough to blend into the background, I thought. Valuable enough to be used. And forgettable enough to be erased. I walked away without another word, slipped into a side hallway that led toward the service area. Cool, quiet, tucked away, just what I needed. That's where I heard them. Two women whispering as they leaned near the door to the AV room. "Did you see the slideshow? She's stunning," one said. "The hotel shot totally belongs in a magazine." Curious, I made my way back into the main ballroom. There was a looping slideshow projected on the large screen near the head table. Pictures of Delaney and her fiancé, romantic beach shots, fancy dinners, filtered candids. Then came a photo that stopped me. It was me, standing in front of the Grand Mariner, taken last year, my posture straight, my smile polite, the same one I used for my LinkedIn. Below it, the caption read, "Delaney's eye for elegance secured this venue." I could barely process it. I had sent that photo in for a bridal industry feature article 6 months ago. Delaney never had that photo. Marlene never asked to use it. They'd taken it straight from the magazine, slapped a new caption on it, and fed it to the guests like it was Delaney's work. I opened my phone, searched my email. There it was, full credit, Time-stamped. My name in black and white. I didn't storm out, didn't shout. I opened a folder I'd titled Receipts. Locked, hidden, but ready. Deposit transfers to the hotel. Check. The original email chain suggesting this venue. Check. The florist contract. The same one Delaney bragged about negotiating last night. Check. They thought I was too dignified to speak up. They were wrong. I was just waiting for the right moment. The cake table caught my eye on the way out of the ballroom, and behind it, Marlene, centered, commanding, overseeing floral placement as if she'd done any of it. I walked straight up to her. Calm, not cold, just steady. Why did you use my photo in the video and say it was Delaney's? She didn't miss a beat. It's a group effort, she said. Everyone knows you're behind the scenes. Do you really need credit for everything? I tilted my head. No, I need truth. And a little decency. She waved at a staffer mid-sentence, cutting me off with a perfect smile for someone else. That was her answer. Dismissal. The silence from her wasn't peace. It was positioning. She didn't ignore me to protect feelings. She did it to preserve image. I turned and walked across the room to a window overlooking the ocean. Pulled out my phone again. Send me copies of all transfer receipts from the last 6 months, I typed. My assistant replied immediately. Already organized. Want me to forward to anyone? Not yet. But soon? I stood there, scanning the room, watching the same people who had clapped for my silence and smiled at my erasure. I wasn't going to make a scene, I told myself. I was going to change the narrative. I knew the ceremony was just minutes away, but I wasn't standing there as a guest anymore. I was standing there as the woman they'd underestimated for far too long. They mistook my patience for submission. That's their last mistake. The ceremony was about to begin. The hum of anticipation was louder than the music. Glasses clinked gently as guests returned to their seats. I stood near the back of the ballroom, trying to decide whether to sit or leave. That's when a staff member approached, clipboard in hand, and said with a smile that wasn't really a smile, "Your mom said you'll be doing a short speech before the vows, to introduce the gift." My jaw clenched so tightly I could feel it in my ears. "I'm sorry?" I asked. She gestured toward the front. "You'll be speaking, just a short thank you to the couple." Delaney, in her dress, waved from the front row, mouthing the words, "Thank you." It wasn't a mistake. This was planned. A live ambush. They were setting me up to publicly confirm the lie. The lie that I had gifted my home. Let silence look like consent. And if I walked away, I'd be painted as bitter. If I stood up there and said nothing, they'd win anyway. I took one deep breath, looked at the mic on the stand, and walked the other way. I didn't look back, but I didn't make it far. Marlene caught me halfway down the aisle, near the stage steps. "Where are you going?" she hissed. "You're embarrassing her." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. "You're embarrassing yourselves," I said, clearly. "That condo is mine, and no one asked." The nearby guests turned. Some froze mid-sip. The MC stood like he didn't know where to look. Marlene's eyes hardened. "You're ruining this. You've always been difficult." Delaney stepped down, holding the hem of her dress like a child playing victim. "Why can't you just let me have this?" Her voice cracked perfectly, tears already forming. "Then buy your own condo," I said without blinking. A gasp rippled through the room. Someone dropped a fork, and for a full 5 seconds, no one said a word. Red-faced and cornered, Marlene moved from defense to offense. "You don't even have a family to fill it," she snapped. "Don't be selfish." I looked straight at her. "Then stop pretending I'm part of this one." The silence deepened. No more applause. No more polite murmurs. Just tension, raw and electric. Marlene turned to a hotel security guard standing off to the side. She didn't hesitate. "Escort her out." The man looked confused. "Ma'am, Now," she barked. He nodded. "I'm sorry, miss. I've been asked to walk you out," he said to me softly. I nodded once. No resistance. Guests watched. Some avoided my eyes. Others looked shocked but said nothing. No one stood. No one asked questions. Funny thing about shame, it only works when you choose to carry it. I walked out on my own feet. Outside the ballroom, the noise dimmed behind the closed doors. I stood in the marble-tiled lobby, surrounded by strangers checking into rooms, oblivious to the explosion that just happened upstairs. I pulled out my phone. Texted my assistant. "Pull up the HOA registration and title doc. We're done playing polite." Opened a group chat of my work colleagues. Typed, "Hope you're not at table 12. The show just got canceled." I stared at that message for a second, then hit send. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel hurt. I felt awake. They wanted me gone. They forgot who signed the check for the damn venue. They wanted me out of the picture, I thought. They forgot who paid for the frame. As I stood waiting for a car, the sliding doors opened behind me. Delaney's friend, one of the bridesmaids, I think, walked out, heels in her hand. "I'm sorry," she said gently. "I didn't know all that. Delaney really thought the condo was hers." "She never asked," I said. She nodded. "She posted about it last week, said, 'Our place is ready.'" She pulled out her phone, showed me the post. There it was. My furniture, my rug, my art on the wall, my name, erased. It didn't burn. It clarified. "They didn't just cross a line," I said aloud, mostly to myself. "They'd built a whole celebration on the other side of it." They walked me out like a stranger. But I was the one who built the damn house. The moment I stepped into the back seat of the hired car, I stopped being their story. My fingers trembled, not from panic, but from energy that had nowhere to go yet. Through the tinted window, I watched the glass doors of the hotel slowly disappear behind me. The same hotel I'd booked, negotiated, and paid a deposit on. The same one that escorted me out like I was someone who wandered in off the street. My phone buzzed nonstop. Messages, mentions, missed calls, notifications piling like snow. I ignored most of them until a name stopped me. Lauren, former colleague. Tough, sharp, no nonsense. "Girl, that clip is everywhere. 70K views and climbing. Are you okay?" I opened the link. The video played. Me walking out. Head high, steps solid. Then cut to Marlene yelling. Delaney crying. A guard beside me. Overlaid text read, "Entitled daughter ruins wedding?" Then another. "Or woman standing up for herself." I watched it twice, then muted it. Let it loop silently as I stared at my own face. For the first time, they all saw me, and some of them actually believed me. Public humiliation had backfired, and they didn't even know it yet. By the time the car pulled up to my condo, I wasn't shaking anymore. I stepped inside, locked the door behind me, and stripped off the jacket. The silence in that space hit different now, like it was waiting for me to finally choose myself. I changed into clean black slacks and a cream blouse. Strong, simple, unapologetic. Then I picked up my phone and called Thorne Bexley. "It's time," I said. "I want you there. Make sure the board hears what happened." His voice didn't hesitate. "Give me 45 minutes. I walked through the penthouse, my penthouse. Ran a hand across the kitchen counter I'd designed. Opened the glass door to my balcony and let the city air hit me square in the chest. They took everything but forgot. I still had the paper trail. And a few people who valued the truth. I opened a drawer. Inside were the documents I kept locked up but ready. Condo deed, title certificate, bank transfers, emails with every vendor. They erased my voice, but they couldn't erase my receipts. As I stood in the doorway with those papers in my hand, the doorman buzzed up. Miss Irma, James said quietly, just wanted to say, I saw the video. You did good. I looked at him, this man who had opened doors for my family 100 times. He handed me a sealed envelope. From 4C, he said. Didn't leave a name. Said they've been there too. Inside was a note. No signature. Just a sentence. You're not crazy. They just needed you quiet. That did more than any applause ever could. I opened my phone again. Jet had messaged me, my teenage cousin, the one who live-streamed the moment. I didn't mean for it to go viral, he wrote. But you didn't deserve that. I'm with you. I typed back. Thank you for letting the truth out. Stay out of the fire now. He sent a thumbs-up emoji. For once, it didn't feel childish. An hour passed. Thorn texted. Arriving, tell the guard to expect 2 more. I called the hotel, gave them names. Calm, direct, no theatrics. Then I got into a new car, different driver, different energy. I entered the hotel through the service hallway, just like the staff I'd been mistaken for earlier that day. I wasn't crashing a wedding, I was crashing an illusion. The side hallway smelled of rosewater and candle wax. I walked slowly, heard the reception noise swell, glasses clinking, light laughter, music fading into speeches. Then silence. One by one, heads turned. I didn't shrink. Thorn walked in a beat behind me, Armani suit, controlled pace. 2 legal advisors at his side. The entire atmosphere shifted. Marlene's face dropped, not in anger, but in calculation. She scanned the room like a chessboard and realized she was 2 moves from checkmate. Mrs. Stroud, Thorn said, voice steady. There seems to be a misunderstanding about property, legal ownership, and public defamation. Gasps whispered around the tables. Some guests pulled out their phones again. I stood beside him, hands clasped. Not a word. He walked to the head table, laid down a thin file, and locked eyes with Marlene. This is your final chance, he said, measured, to address this in private before it becomes a very public problem. They wanted the spotlight. Now it was burning their skin. She thought the microphone gave her power. I brought someone who owned the speakers. And after all the noise, what came next was silence. Thorn and I sat in the hotel's private lounge, the kind of space they save for executives or celebrities who don't want to mingle with the wedding crowds. Fitting, really. I wasn't part of that crowd anymore. My phone buzzed. Then again, and again. I glanced at the screen. 3 different people had sent me the same screenshot. Marlene's public Facebook post. Some children don't understand gratitude. We raised her better. Thousands of reactions, likes, comments, shares. Some applauded her. Others dragged her. One read, another boomer mom blaming her daughter for having boundaries. I didn't flinch. I just opened my folder marked unsent. Inside, a file Jet had forwarded me earlier that day. 3 minutes of audio. Nothing fancy. No edits. Just truth recorded in real time. I hit play. Marlene's voice, calm and composed. We'll just say Irma gave it. Once we announce it, she can't say no. Delaney, just as smooth. She won't make a scene. She never does. That was the gamble. That was the bet they'd placed and lost. They didn't just assume my silence. They built their house on it. I sent the audio to Thorn's legal advisor with one line, use this publicly. He replied within a minute. Understood. The reception was still buzzing. Guests refilling drinks, DJ warming up, servers lighting dessert trays, and then Thorn stepped up. He didn't raise his voice, didn't introduce himself with pomp, just asked politely for a moment to clarify something on behalf of Ms. Irma Crane, And then he played the tape. No preamble, no context, just the voices. Marlene, Delaney, their own words. The room fell still. I stood at the edge of the floor, hands steady. I didn't smile, didn't blink. They wanted me out of the story. Instead, I'd handed the pen back to the truth. The truth doesn't need me to scream, I thought. It speaks loud enough on its own. A pause, then a clap. One single clap from the back, then another, then a slow growing ripple. Some guests looked at Marlene, others at Delaney, and a few at me. She shot up from her chair. "That's edited," Marlene snapped. "Taken out of context." Thorne remained calm. "The full recording is in our legal possession and in cloud storage. Would you like us to play all of it?" Delaney cracked first. Tears welled, but they weren't from guilt. They were the kind that come from being caught with your hand in the jar. Marlene didn't stay to fight. She muttered under her breath as she turned to leave. "Ungrateful, disgraceful. We gave her everything." I didn't chase her, didn't try to fix it. There was nothing to fix. They'd spent years crafting a version of me they could control. And in trying to destroy me, they'd destroyed that version instead. They wanted me to look like the villain. But in trying so hard, they tore off their own masks. The music stopped. Dessert was served. Small pockets of guests whispered while others returned to their seats like nothing had happened. I wasn't interested in the cake. What came next wasn't sugar. It was accountability. The hotel manager approached me quietly. "Miss Crane," he said, "your room upstairs is still available, if you'd prefer to return." I smiled, a real one this time. "No need. I have somewhere else to be." I didn't stay for the bouquet toss, or the speeches, or the awkward family dancing that always comes after someone's pride gets shattered. But before I left, I stopped at the front desk, left behind a sealed envelope addressed to the family. Inside was a single photo, one I'd kept for years, a childhood birthday party. In the picture, I was standing alone in the background, everyone else in the frame facing the cake. I wasn't invited to blow out the candles. On the back of the photo, I'd written, "This was the first time they forgot me. Tonight was the last." I didn't raise my voice. I just raised the truth and watched everything else fall. And for once, I wasn't afraid to claim it. The sun came up slowly through the tall windows of my penthouse. Light moved across the hardwood floor like it had all the time in the world. I didn't rush to get up, didn't reach for my phone, just sat there in the silence and let the stillness speak first. When I finally checked my messages, the video had passed 1.5 million views. I scrolled through a flood of emails, texts, mentions, many from people I hadn't heard from in years. "You were composed. Thank you for showing us what self-respect looks like in a room full of silence." They erased me from the wedding, I thought. The internet wrote me back in. I made coffee. The real kind. French press. Sat near the window and sipped slowly. There was no rush anymore, no script. Just air, warmth, and the beginning of something I hadn't had in years. Peace. Later that morning, Jet sent me a video. Said nothing in the message, just the file. It was the family montage they'd played at the reception. Photos from decades, vacations, holidays, every kind of staged smile you could imagine. I watched it straight through once. Then again, not a single frame of me. Not even the Christmas photo from 2 years ago. The one I paid for, flying the whole family in, covering the house rental and the food. Not even that. "This wasn't forgetting," I whispered. "This was omission. Deliberate. Chosen." I didn't cry. I saved the video, closed the app, didn't reply. That silence? It wasn't surrender. It was the boundary they never thought I'd learn to draw. Midday came and brought consequences with it. A call from David Kim, COO at a firm that had been negotiating a merger with my family's company. Calm voice, direct tone. We're pulling out. The board won't move forward with a name attached to this level of public fallout. I'm sorry, Irma. 2 more emails followed. One from a logistics chain, another from an investment group. They were gone too. Funny how quickly money runs from manipulation. Then came another message, one asking if I'd consider consulting. They wanted to trade my silence for their stability, I thought. Turns out, they lost both. Marlene's Facebook post had done more damage than she'd imagined, and all the spin in the world couldn't cover what was said in their own voices. The unraveling wasn't loud, it was slow, but visible. That afternoon, I sat down at my desk and pulled out a small box. Inside was the place card from the wedding, misspelled, bent. Next to it, a letter I'd written, addressed not to my mother, but to Delaney. I didn't send it, just folded it into the box. I don't hate you, the letter read. I hate who I had to become to survive being your sister. I locked the box away in my closet, not as punishment, but as closure. Then my assistant called. The press wants an interview, she said. No, I said. Let them talk. I'm done explaining myself to people who decided who I was before I walked into the room. That night, Thorne invited me to dinner. His wife hugged me at the door. Their home wasn't perfect. A little messy, a little loud, but it was real. The table was long, full of mismatched plates and laughter. One of Thorne's daughters, maybe 15, leaned over during dessert. Did it feel good standing up like that? She asked. I looked at her, thought about the moment, the fallout, the people who walked away and the ones who stayed. It didn't feel good, I said. It felt necessary. Later, as we cleared plates, I noticed the napkin in front of me, folded carefully, shaped like a leaf. They didn't know. Or maybe they did. I smiled quietly. They erased me from one table, I thought. But this time, I chose where to sit. Some stories end with applause. Mine ended with a seat that finally had my name on it,